Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of E2E or Engineer to Engineer. Last episode, we talked with Grace about managed identity for Azure File Sync. The linchpin was Azure Arc. So we figured let's talk to Nataraj Sadaam, PM on the Azure Files team, and drill in a little bit more on that subject. So stay tuned. Hey, Nataraj, how you doing?
Hey Pierre, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Hey, no problem. So Azure File Sync, Azure Files, Azure Arc. How does it like? What is it like? How does it all connect together, and why do Peacock customer use it?
So before jumping into Azure Arc, let's talk a little bit about Azure File Sync. So Azure File Sync is a product that is used on Windows servers, and you install Azure File Sync agent on the Windows server. You can Azure File Sync will basically sync all the files on your Windows server into Azure File Share. You can also convert your Windows server into a cache. You can by enabling cloud tiering, so then you'll save cost by using your local server as a cache. So you can access files from locally as well as from the cloud. And you can enable multi-site access. You can enable business continuity, and you can also use it for disaster recovery for your Windows servers. So you can do a bunch of things with Windows Server and Azure File Sync. Now, uh, Azure File Sync really enables this sort of like hybrid operation for your Windows servers, and that means your Windows servers can actually exist on premises or on Azure itself. So then, how does this fit into Azure Arc? So Azure Arc is actually designed to bring in servers that are not on Azure. So technically, any server that is um, on premises or even in other clouds like GCP or AWS, you can enable, you can connect them to Arc, and you can make them Arc connected and manage those servers from Azure. And Azure Arc actually supports both Windows and Linux servers. So for us, for Azure File Sync, it makes a lot of sense because Azure Arc has all these Windows servers that are leveraging Azure Arc to be managed by Azure. So they have potentially a lots of file shares on them, and they can be using for department shares or for any other, their critical workloads or for backup or for any other business continuity reasons. So our goal with launching this new Azure File Sync extension for Arc, specifically for Windows, is for customers to easily bring those file shares into Azure, whether they are in the process of modernization or migration. This gives them an easy ability to basically use Azure File Sync on their Arc connected Windows machines. So that's the gist of why Arc and Azure File Sync make sense. And as in customers get familiar with Azure ecosystem, they might say, "Hey, I don't want to use. I want to save cost on my Azure or sorry, Windows file server." One of the ways you could do that is just install Azure File Sync through the extension and just convert your local Windows server, whether it's in a different cloud or on premises, into a cache. And then you can, onboard most of the storage into the cloud share and access only the things that you are most frequently accessing from your local machine. So that way you can save costs, and you can also increase performance, whether you have high latency workload and you're seeing higher latency and you don't have want to invest into reducing latency through other methods. One of the methods you can choose is just choose Azure File Sync and access your files locally, so that now you can avoid the latency of going all the way to Azure to get those files. So this opens up this interesting hybrid use cases, and all the Windows Azure Arc customers can really leverage Azure File Sync through this new extension.
Okay, you've mentioned the word extension a couple times here. Are we talking about the Arc agent slash, or is it a separate extension that runs on top of or leverages the Arc agent running on the local server?
So Azure Arc technically has an extension concept. So if you're managing a machine through Azure Arc and go into the extension section in the Azure portal, you can install different types of extensions. So we are now introducing a new type of extension, which is called Azure File Sync extension. When you install the extension, all the extension does is basically download the MSI file, which you can otherwise download manually as well. But now the extension will do it for you without you doing it manually. So this opens up, easy management. If you have 10 Arc servers, you don't want to download, 10 times and do it manually, install the Azure File Sync agent on that Arc machine. Now you can just install the extension on the portal, and then you can do the other stuff like connecting the file sync, the file share on the portal that you would still have to do. But this is like a good start and making it easier for our customers to adopt Azure File Sync.
Oh, that's perfect. Um, so is that deployed from the Azure? Is that deployed from the Azure portal, or is that in the Arc, or like locally on the server where you've got the portal? Like, how do you deploy this, and how can that be automated?
So why don't I just give a quick demo?
Okay, perfect.
So here, for example, we are in the Azure portal. What you could do is basically here I have a machine that I'm managing through R called T002. Um, all you have to do is go into that machine. And once I go there, go into the extensions tab.
Okay.
And here, go to add extension. And it will open up the install extension screen where you can find different extensions. And here you can see Azure File Sync agent for Windows. So this is the new extension that we've launched. Uh, and you hit install. Here you have to select at different settings that you would otherwise select while installing Azure File Sync agent. So for example, if you have to define proxy settings, if you want to keep continuously updating Azure File Sync agent, you can do at what time you want to do those. So there will be a bunch of those settings that you have to select. So here I
Well,
want to
quick
update.
question while we're in that on there. Does that mean that we now have to have like the sync service and like everything else already set up in Azure? We're just adding that one server to like
Yes.
another endpoint to a file sync service?
Yes, you still have to create your sync service in the cloud, and once you install the agent, you have to still mention in the sync service which folder on the Azure file on your Arc machine that you want to sync for your server endpoint and connect it with the cloud endpoint that you want to connect with. So you still have to do that thing, and maybe in future, that's where this is sort of like crawl and then run mechanism. So this is our first step towards sort of integrating into the Arc ecosystem. But eventually, based on customer feedback, we want to do more things and make it much more easier for customers to adopt Azure File Sync.
Okay, perfect.
So here, we agree to the license. We'll hit next and hit create. So this is behind the scenes. What this is doing is this extension is installing. Um, this extension is being installed on the Arc machine, which behind the scenes pulls the agent from the download center and installs it on your machine. And when you go and log into your machine, you'll be able to see once the deployment is done that Azure File Sync agent is already installed on your machine.
Okay, so it just facilitates all of the onboarding.
Yes. So I'll stop there. But as you can see, this is sort of like the first step into making Arc machines easily adopt Azure File Sync and Azure Files over time. We plan to do more things. That's some of the things that we're thinking. Obviously, I cannot share yet, but we look forward to how customers will use this and take their feedback and probably do more things that will not only just make it easy to adopt file sync, but it also provides us an opportunity to make it easy to manage any file servers overall. So that's the direction we want to go. But it's but yeah, we're really excited about this integration and looking forward to see how customers will use it and get their feedback.
Okay. Well, any of you watching right now, if you have feedback, if you have suggestions, something you want to see, put it in the comments below, and I'll make sure that Nataraj actually gets that information. So let us help you. So, in terms of the future of Arc and AFS or Azure File Sync, uh, I know you said that there's things you were working on. Is there anything more that you can tell us as to what's on the roadmap, or is right now is what you've mentioned is all that you can share at the moment?
We're also trying to provide more better pricing options for our customers with certain specific licenses on how they will be when they leverage Azure File Sync to provide them better pricing. That's one of the things that will soon announce and how that will look like, and for which set of customers that will apply. That's the near term thing that we are excited to launch. In terms of other features, we have a bunch of ideas. We are working with different teams inside because this is a collaboration between our team, Windows Server team, and Azure File Sync team. So we're working with our teams to sort of, and we have different ideas on how we can make it simpler, both on a adoption sense and also managing these servers. And I can't really talk about which specific features we're going to pick and when we launch. But the pricing one is a interesting one that is going to be announced pretty soon in the next couple of months.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for spending the time with us to kind of like let us know like the benefits of using Azure File Sync and Arc. Um, and let us know if there's anything else that in the future that you want to come and talk to us about.
Of course. Thanks, Peter. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right. And for you out watching this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if, as I mentioned, if you have any comments or suggestions, please put them in the comments below. And with that being said, cheers.